I'll be taking my place now, Arthur.
A snicker left a man in polished armor that looked spotless. He passed by the king of the Britons with arrogance in every step. A permanent, confident smile upon his face.
So angry at Lancelot, and not at me. I'm flattered. Gawain, how pleasant to see you again, brother. Do you have any words, or does the cat have your tongue?
The other knights of the Round Table seemed ready to jump at the provocation, but the king held them back with a mere look. Keep yourselves calm. Do not let him rouse you. Arthur spoke with authority as Mordred walked by, continuing his smug grin. Do not believe yourself free of consequences. I merely hold them back so you have no crutch to lean on when you lose.
So bitter still, uncle. Ha! Still I strike a nerve. Or rather, do I still strike your gut?
Be on your way, Mordred.
Very well, keep close eyes on my match. I don't need claims of being better than the rest of you. You know it to be true.
As he stepped into the ring, his opponent was made known before him. Silver light, like divine fire, wreathed the ground upon which the Valkyrie stood. She was in polished platinum armor, and bore hair as white as the snow upon the fjords of Norway.
It's a shame you fell the way you did. You were a great warrior in your time. I fell because of a lucky strike from my uncle's lance. Excalibur could have done it, but I proved much too hardy. This is a tournament, Valkyrie. I don't need your sympathy.
Brunhilde lowered her head and sighed, her spear illuminating.
Very well. If that is how you wish...
Brunhilde was cut off, her spear having to swing outward to block a strike from the traitorous knight. Clarent, Mordred's sacred sword, whipped around and struck thrice more, each one pushing the Valkyrie's heels back. Her eyes leered forth in surprise at the sheer relentlessness as his actions continued to ripple out.
I know every style of combat. These attacks are...
She pushed away as the sword ripped down, dodging as Mordred looked up.
Your skills are none of my concern. I'm only concerned with my victory!
Mordred's words left, and then he moved forward. Slinkily, he shot across the ring before striking up with his sword.
They should be.
The Valkyrie spun and jabbed the butt of her spear into Mordred's core. His knees instantly buckled and he dropped to all fours.
As your opponent, I should always be your concern. That arrogance is certainly why you... Oh, please. Hold your tongue, will you? I needn't hear more about what you do and do not have the power over. I am well aware that you are some sort of celestial being that is not entirely mortal. Not that I am one to care.
Mordred clattered Clarent against the spear of his foe, pushing her back and causing her head to tilt to the side.
I feel like you should. That arrogance is nothing more than just a facade to hide your own ineptitude. I believe you're conflating me with the other knights. I have no ineptitude.
Mordred had swung down heavily with Clarent, but found the edge of Brunhilde's spear, his left shoulder being run through with its gleaming, bleeding edge.
Ah!
Blood raced down his arm and onto the dusty floor. All the while, Brunhilde drew her spear free and looked at him with a sneer.
You lack a flaw. Don't be so foolish to say that. Arrogance is clearly yours.
Once more, the spear pierced into Mordred's body. Not the fatal shot it was intended to be, but a blow that pierced into his side, taking the armor there with it. His dodge proving beneficial, but also quite detrimental.
Ah! I hear nothing but arrogance pour from your mouth. Arrogance and betrayal. Two things I cannot stand!
Her spear was thrust forward again, ripping the wind and aiming for Mordred's chest for another fatal blow.
I was a beloved king in Arthur's stead. I took the throne from under his nose, but others have done the same to their kings and queens long before and after I have. One traitor is no better than another. That is correct. There are numerous traitors and none is better than the other. Then why are you so vindictive against me?
Brunhilde was pushed back again, her spear having been assaulted by Mordred's single-arm, furied attacks.
You narrowed your sights upon me, and me alone, despite Lancelot being right there!
Mordred stuck at her, and she batted it aside with her spear.
You are my opponent. If the time came, I would do the same to him.
Despite her thrust, Mordred managed to block it. The knight, though, dropped to a knee after, his side pouring fresher crimson to the ground as he grimaced.
Do not make such a claim, when you and I both know you're speaking falsehoods. Do not speak words into my mouth!
Another piercing from the spear occurred. This went deep into Mordred's core, through the armor and out his back, his mouth spilling forth a torrent of blood.
That struck a nerve, didn't it? Your hypocrisy is no doubt a sign of compensation for something. I never have to compensate, to compromise!
The first time Clarent made contact with the Valkyrie, it landed a critical blow. Her right arm, which held the spear forward as her left thrust from behind, was severed, the grip loosening as the sharpened edge of Mordred's sword passed right through, dropping it to the ground.
Ah!
She screamed as crimson ripped from the wound, her body slumping to the side. Mordred was carried with the motion, the spear that stabbed through him dragging him along.
That was a broad stroke. It went wide. I missed your head. It appears my fate is to always be run through. But at least I know that you were the one who faltered here.
Mordred gave his ghost in that moment, his body tipping back from the spear that had draped his frame. He collapsed in a heap as Brunhilde stood, grasping at the stump where her arm had been. His face, though softened by death, still bore a smug smile, as if, in some sense, he had claimed victory. Which in his mind, he had, as the Valkyrie stood in the ring, clutching at the wound, a man, towering, with aged features, and missing an eye, approached the ring. He walked with a large oaken rod, and stepped to her with a calming presence that resounded through the arena. Valkyrie, you did well. Come to our terrace and reclaim your rest.
All-Father.
Speak not. I know what you will say. He was a knight that I had not expected much of, and yet he nearly bested you. Come, your sisters are waiting. Return and claim your rest. This tournament has much to go.
Yes, All-Father.
She nodded and returned to her terrace. And with that, the warrior Mordred laying in a heap in the center of the ring, the first round of the Mythomelee comes to a close. With the field of combatants cut in half, the tournament is narrowing in on a victor, who will crown themselves the greatest hero.